The Japan earthquake and tsunami of 2011, also known as the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami or the Great Tohoku earthquake, was a natural disaster that shook northeastern Japan on March 11, 2011. The disaster began when a magnitude 9 earthquake shook the region in the early afternoon, unleashing a savage tsunami. The effects of the Great Earthquake, which was the strongest in Japan's recorded history, were felt around the world, from Norway's fjords to Antarctica's ice sheet. Tsunami debris has continued to wash up on North American beaches years later. In Japan, residents are still recovering from the disaster. As of November 2021, there were still about 39,000 evacuees who lost their home. 1,000 of them were still living in temporary housing, according to Japan's Reconstruction agency. More than 120,000 buildings were destroyed, 278 were half destroyed, and 726,000 were partially destroyed, according to the agency. The direct financial damage from the disaster is estimated to be at about $199 billion, or 16.9 trillion yen. According to the Japanese government, the total economic cost could reach up to $235 billion, the World Bank estimated, making it the costliest natural disaster in world history. Here are some of the 7 surprising things you should know about the disaster. 1. A surprise disaster. The unexpected disaster was neither the largest nor the deadliest earthquake and tsunami to strike this century. That record goes to the 2004 Banda Aceh earthquake and tsunami in Sumatra, a magnitude 9.1 which killed more than 230,000 people. But Japan's 1-2 punch proved especially devastating for the earthquake-savvy country, because few scientists had predicted the country would experience such a large earthquake and tsunami. Japan's scientists had forecast a smaller earthquake would strike the northern region of Honshu, the country's main island, nor did they expect such a large tsunami. But there had been hints of the disaster to come. The areas flooded in 2011 closely matched those of a tsunami that hit Sendai in AD 869. In the decade before the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, a handful of Japanese geologists had begun to recognize that a large earthquake and tsunami had struck the northern Honshu region in that year. However, their warnings went unheeded by officials responsible for the country's earthquake hazard assessments. Now, tsunami experts from around the world have been asked to assess the history of past tsunamis in Japan to better predict the country's future earthquake risk. 2. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake struck offshore of Japan, along a subduction zone where 2 of Earth's tectonic plates collide. In a subduction zone, one plate slides beneath another into the mantle, the hotter layer beneath the crust. The great plates are rough and stick together, building up energy that is released as earthquakes. East of Japan, the Pacific plate dives beneath the overriding Eurasian plate. The temblor completely released centuries of built-up stress between the 2 tectonic plates, a recent study found. The March 11 earthquake started on a Friday at 2:46 p.m. local time, or 5:46 a.m. UTC. It was centered on the seafloor 45 miles, 72 kilometers east of Tohoku, at a depth of 15 miles, 24 km below the surface. The shaking lasted about 6 minutes. Scientists drilled into the subduction zone soon after the earthquake and discovered a thin, slippery clay layer lining the fault, according to a 2013 study in the journal Science, opens in a new tab. The researchers think that this clay layer allowed the 2 plates to slide an incredible distance, some 164 feet or 50 meters, facilitating the enormous earthquake and tsunami. 3. Early warning. Residents of Tokyo received a minute of warning before the strong shaking hit the city, thanks to Japan's earthquake early warning system. The country's stringent seismic building codes and early warning system prevented many deaths from the earthquake by stopping high-speed trains and factory assembly lines. People in Japan also received texted alerts of the earthquake and tsunami warnings on their cell phones. 4. Death toll of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. The number of confirmed deaths is 19,747 as of December 2021, according to the Reconstruction agency. More than 2,500 people are still reported missing. Less than an hour after the earthquake, the first of many tsunami waves hit Japan's coastline. The tsunami waves reached run-up heights. How far the wave surges inland above sea level of up to 128 feet or 39 meters at Miyako City and traveled inland as far as 6 miles or 10 kilometers in Sendai. The tsunami flooded an estimated area of approximately 217 square miles, or 561 square kilometers, in Japan, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The waves overtopped and destroyed protective tsunami seawalls at several locations. The massive surge destroyed 3-story buildings where people had gathered for safety. Near Orai, the tsunami generated a huge whirlpool offshore, captured on video. 5. The Fukushima nuclear meltdown. The tsunami caused a cooling system failure at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, which resulted in a level 7 nuclear meltdown and release of radioactive materials. The electrical power and backup generators were overwhelmed by the tsunami, and the plant lost its cooling capabilities. Fukushima was created by the tsunami. The earthquake was not a factor, Titov said. Fukushima was designed for a tsunami smaller than the one we saw. Very low levels of radioactive chemicals that leaked from Fukushima have been detected along the North American coast offshore Canada and California. Trace amounts of cesium-134 and cesium-137, radioactive isotopes, were found in seawater collected in 2014 and 2015. 6. The response. In the tsunami's aftermath, Japan's meteorological agency was criticized for issuing an initial tsunami warning that underestimated the size of the wave. In some regions, such as the Miyagi and Fukushima, only 58% of people headed for higher ground immediately after the earthquake, according to a Japanese government study published in August 2011. Many people also underestimated their personal risk, or assumed the tsunami would be as small as ones they had previously experienced, the study found. Scientists from around the world descended on Japan following the earthquake and tsunami. Researchers sailed offshore and dropped sensors along the fault line to measure the forces that caused the earthquake. Teams studied the tsunami deposits to better understand ancient sediment records of the deadly waves. Earthquake engineers examined the damage, looking for ways to build buildings more resistant to quakes and tsunamis. The tsunami itself died out a long time ago, but the effects in Japan will be there for decades. 7. Worldwide consequences. The tsunami waves also traveled across the Pacific, reaching Alaska, Hawaii, and Chile. In Chile, some 11,000 miles or 1,700 kilometers distant, the tsunami was 6.6 feet or 2 meters high when they reached the shore, according to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. The surge of water carried an estimated 5 million tons of debris out to sea, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency reported. Japanese docks and ships and countless household items have arrived on U.S. and Canadian shores in the ensuing years. The U.S. Coast Guard fired on and sank the derelict boat 164-foot Ryu Unmaru in 2012 in the Gulf of Alaska. The ship started its journey in Hokkaido. The earthquake was undoubtedly one of the worst that mankind has ever witnessed.